Nation of Fit in 10. It is day 48, 22 days to go. And a reminder that still 3+ weeks to go is a lot, and you can still make a lot of change. Still 30% of this challenge, 30+%. Every day counts. If you mess up, if you have a bad day, if you are emotional for some reason and you just can't seem to stick to things, that's okay. Well, I don't want to say it's okay, it's not okay, it's what happened. And you've just got to move forward. Okay, you just got to move forward. That's just the way it is. But remember, all the good days will add up, right? And all the bad days will minus, okay? And so, just remind yourself of that when you make the choice to do whatever you choose to do, right? Okay. More feedback. Okay, so I read this, I think yesterday. Try heavier weights. Okay, so this person wrote, so this is under the heading, name something you can improve upon for the following week. Try heavier weights. My tailbone is feeling better but still sore. I want to build more muscle, but I didn't build much at the last weigh-in. I'm going to try heavier weights and less sets during the Zoom workout class and do 1, maybe 2 personal workouts. All right, so I think I mentioned to you, I mentioned this to you yesterday. You're not really going to see. You can see an increase in your muscle mass on the scan. Okay, so basically, the scan is just a snapshot of the mass of the total muscle on your body at that moment. But that mass can fluctuate up and down depending on the size of, depending on how much muscle mass you have. It will fluctuate. Anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds. Okay, so you can still, like I mentioned yesterday, you can still put on muscle tissue, but your scan could show that you are it could show that your muscle mass, the mass that includes the tissue and the water in the muscle, is down. Doesn't mean you lost muscle tissue. Okay, there's just no way you can control. Your body is dynamic. Okay, so you just have to understand that you're dealing with a bit of a moving target, and there's always going to be some fluctuations, just like your weight. Your weight will fluctuate. Okay. All right, so you're doing the Zoom workouts. Okay, so to this person, yeah, I mean, the Zoom workouts are more catered towards, listen, you're doing some resistance training. If you're new to the Zoom workouts, you're definitely going to build some muscle. If you've been training with heavier weights, and then you go to the Zoom workouts and you're doing lighter weights, yeah, you may not see that change in muscle mass. You're not going to lose muscle, okay? You're not going to lose muscle, but you're not going to potentially, especially long term, you're not going to see the benefits when you compare the Zoom workouts to the, let's say, in the gym lift camps, the heavier workouts, okay? So just keep all that in mind. But like I said, it's very, very hard unless you gain, to be honest with you, unless you gain 4+ pounds of muscle. Like an extreme example would be let's say you gain 4 pounds of muscle, but when you come in for your scan, you're just really depleted, and you will be if your carbohydrates are. So, consider things like this: if your carbohydrates are lower, and/or you did a lot of cardio, and/or you were sick, and/or you didn't sleep well, and/or there's a bunch of factors, perhaps even stress. These will affect the amount of water in the muscle. Okay, so just consider that. So imagine you came in, you put on 4 pounds of muscle, but you had a really, you did a lot of cardio. Let's say you did some extra cardio. Let's say you had a stressful day. Let's say maybe you didn't sleep well. These are all going to potentially, lower the water in the muscle. So you could let's just say it happens to be on that peak time where your water mass in the muscle is the lowest. You could potentially not even see that change. Okay, now it's unlikely that would happen. If you put on 4 pounds of muscle, you should see that change. But if you put on ½ pound of muscle, you're not going to see that change. Okay. Anyways, I think I explained that one enough yesterday. But you know, long term when you're training, long term speaking, like, so one thing that you guys should understand is that if you go from nothing to doing yoga, you'll probably gain a little bit of muscle. Okay, and if you went from yoga to doing like the Zoom classes, you're going to gain a little bit of muscle. But those will quickly, you will quickly plateau, because the amount of overload through time is not really changing. Okay, but if you're doing weights, okay, so you're doing like the lift camp classes where, you know, you're lifting weights anywhere from like 8 to 20 reps in that range, and especially with the more compound movements, the bigger movements, you're trying to progress the weight heavier and heavier each week or every couple weeks. This is going to really promote muscle hypertrophy, okay, muscle gain. Okay, but even that will have a point of a plateau too, right? I mean, I've been training like ridiculously. I don't want to sound like I'm self-indulgent, but I've trained like pretty hard for a good 30 years. I did competitive bodybuilding. I still consider myself to train really hard. I still train 4 to 5 days a week. My diet is pretty meticulous, and I'm not absolutely massive, right? Because in the beginning it was like this for me, and then it was it just kind of like starts to level off, but maybe it continue, and now of course I'm 42, so I'm dealing with there's a difference between 42 and 22, right? So it's all relative is my point, right? Name something specific you need help with. How can I tell which weights to use? Okay, this is a good question. How can you tell which weights to use? Okay, well, if we say to you, you are to do 10 reps, let's say five sets of 10 on the bench press, you will start with a very easy weight, okay? So a weight that you know for sure, like roughly 50% of what you could do for 10. Now, I know you don't necessarily know what that 10 reps will be, but you've done the movements probably at least a couple times. If you didn't know, then you would just start super light and then just kind of build off of that. But you already know, I'm sure, I know you know roughly what you're using, okay? Roughly what you're capable of. So you start with lighter than that, like much lighter, like 50%. Then you do some progression sets. So maybe you go 50% of your 10 rep max or your estimated 10 rep max, then maybe 65%, then maybe 80%, and then maybe try for that 100% by your 4th set. And then you get 10. You say, well, I did 10, and I know I could have done more. Okay, let's try heavier. You thought that was your 100%, but it actually turns out not to be. Let's add 10% and see what you could do. Maybe you get 10 with that, and you're like, I still think I could have done more. Okay, make a note of that. Next time you come around to do it, you've got that benchmark now, right? You've got that point with which you can assess from. Okay? So it's a matter of at least in the very beginning, it's trial and error. And then after that, it's just about noting it down. Okay? Or I should say you note it down in the beginning, and then you have a benchmark, right? Is there anything you'd like me to cover in this week's video series? Okay, I'm at 8.5 minutes. Okay, let's get the message of the day. Message of the day is this: surround yourself with people who elevate your game. Surround yourself, put yourself around people that pick you up, okay? Whatever goal is important to you, make sure that you're around people that help you in that goal. If you are around people that are going to bring you down or pull you away from that goal, or minimize it, or ask you why are you doing this and try to pull you away from doing it, it's fine if they ask you why, but you understand what I'm saying. I think if there's a negative tone about it, I'm not saying you have to abandon these people, but I mean, probably the best thing to do is just to address them straight on and ask them why it bothers them, if it does. If it seems like it does, you can ask them if it does, if you think it does. I've just seen this time and time again. I've also seen people who are very, very supportive as well. So I'm just saying, if you have a goal in mind and you want to work towards it, you need to be, it's important to you. You need to, at least more often than not, surround yourself with people who are going to support you in that endeavor, right? You have to, okay? Especially if your goals are really, really big. You absolutely have to. And the bigger your goal, the more, I hate to say this, but the more, the more negativity you probably encounter. If you don't, kudos to you. You are around some good people, okay? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for love, God, give some gratitude. We'll talk to y'all very soon. See you guys.